DECAP.
Whole squad on that wave shit.
I'm on my wave. Pull up in that flave. You see that I'm paid. Remember the name.
So that's On My Wave. I made that track with Harry, HXRY is how you spell it, and the homie, oh gosh, Leotus. So this one, the beat, again, surprise, surprise, the beat is super simple. I made it in FL Studio. For the drums, Magic Kick, I believe that's Drums That Knock Volume 7, Bumbleclot Snare, Gritty Hat and Gritty Hat 2, Trap Banger Hat. Let me play the drums first. So your basic, simple pattern. If we look at the drums, just kept it real basic with the drums, but it's got that bounce to it. It just feels good. I'm trying to figure out how I threw it off the beat. In Ableton, on the channel, you can adjust your track so it's off the beat. In FL, you can do that per channel, but I use this plugin called Sound Delay, and that's how I threw it off the grid. So I hit it, I believe that's 60 milliseconds off the grid. On the hi-hat, I have a stereo shaper, an FL plugin, just to give it width, kind of like Ozone Imager. And I got a fast distortion with just a little bit on the dry wet. So not the full amount, just a little bit, just to give it that crunch. On the snare, the only plugin is fast distortion. So none of it. And then with fully, too much. Just right in the middle. And on the kick, I have nothing. So that's the drums. Next is the 808, which I made in Harmor for this session. I don't make my drums in every session because drum design takes a lot of attention. So like when I'm making drums, a lot of time for like Drums That Knock, I'm spending a lot of time in full days like making a kick drum, making a snare drum, making a bunch of kicks, making a bunch of snares. When I'm making a beat, normally I won't design the drum in the beat. 808s are easier, so a lot of times I will design the 808 right in the beat. I just have a long release so it trails out. It's like a short 808, so when you hit it, it just vibes. And for some reason, that Magic Kick just sounds so good with 808s. On the 808, of course, the good old Sound Goodizer. The Sound Goodizer, everyone makes fun of this plugin, but it just sounds good, hence the name. So it sounds great on 808s for whatever reason. It's got some distortion, compression going on. So I'll show it without it. Just quieter with it, full on. Just sounds great. After that, I have the Wave Shaper. When you first load it, it looks like this. Magic. Magic. I find that those two plugins just sound really good together on 808s. So sometimes I'll use those two. It's some sauce right there. After that, bells. That is an Omnisphere preset. Fragile bell tone. I'm gonna take the plugins off. Put a halftime on it. So what I love about halftime, shout out to Cable guys, man. They make great plugins. Halftime is just one of those utility knife plugins that you just have to have. If you have a higher register melody, it will give you a counter melody. So that's why I have the mix at 73%. If I have it at 100, dial it back. It's a really good way to make a quick counter melody. After that, EQ, cut out all the lows. Yeah, that's about it. All the bass and sub frequencies. And then RC20. A little bit of vinyl crackle. A little bit of wobble. A little bit of distortion. Little reverb. And then sound delay just to throw it off the grid. Just so it goes with the bounce of the drums and everything. And then from there, I just recorded a quick vocal rap.
I'm on my wave. Pull up in that flave. You see that I'm paid. Remember the name.
I just freestyled that or like wrote it real quick. I can't remember exactly how I came up with that. On the vocal, CLA vocals! I literally have CLA vocals on this. This was unknowingly the perfect track to show. So shout out to CLA vocals, shout out to CLA Woo. So yeah, I have CLA vocals on the vocal track, and that's the only plugin.
Remember the name.
Yo, that is really funny. Okay, so what I did in CLA vocals, this is a little CLA vocals tutorial. This is a great plugin. Good, simple way to get a good vocal sound. I cut the bass, added some top, added some spank, added a delay, 8th delay, and did a stereo widening. So this plugin does a lot just with one plugin. And then on the main FL channel, I added a high boost. I almost never record anything in FL, but this track I decided to record my vocals in it. Let's hear it without CLA.
I'm on my wave. Pull up in that flave. You see that I'm
And then
paid.
with CLA.
Remember the name. I'm on my wave. Pull up in that flave.
And then on the ad-lib, fast distortion, CLA vocals, and an EQ. So we just got CLA on CLA on CLA on CLA on CLA. So for that last note, that roll out, that bass roll on this note, that just, I feel like kind of makes the track. It gives it its groove. So how I did that, I added this roll note right here. So without it, not the same at all. And then with that roll note, it gives the track that extra juice. Oh yeah, I pitched down my vocal too, forgot about that. Just use the time stretching in FL. Let's hear what it sounds like with it pitched up. Yeah, so this is with it normal, just how I rapped it.
I'm on my wave. Pull up in that flave. You see that I'm paid. Remember the name.
And then just pitch it down.
I'm on my wave.
You could do that easily in Ableton too. From here, I sent the track over to Oh Gosh and Harry. They sent back vocals. Then I brought it into Ableton, did some post-production and mixing and all that. It immediately was gonna sound cleaner because this is like the final mix version. I did this final mix in Ableton because I did this track before I learned Pro Tools. So this is what it sounds like in here.
I'm on my wave. Pull up in that flave. You see that I'm paid. Remember the name.
Immediately with the bell track, I just did a cut at 400 hertz because I find that when you cut that frequency, it makes room for the vocals. Added more RC20. A lot of the edits I do are so minor, it might not come through YouTube, but it just adds a little bit of digital distortion, kind of like an old sampler. 808 track, I added some isotope trash to it. I just added maybe a little bit of effect to it. Yeah, just added a little bit of effect to it, just to distort it more. Then I added Imager, just to give it a little bit of width. If you look, it's literally such a small amount. Just a little bit of width, stereo width. Virtual mix rack, shout out to Slate. Slate makes some really dope plugins. I use the plugin Earth on 808s a lot of time just to give it a little more bottom. But again, it's so minor, I don't even know if you'll be able to tell the difference through YouTube. Let's hear it without it. It's a little more bottom on the 808. And then the Surfer EQ. What's cool about the Surfer EQ, it follows the note and it will cut the EQ based on what pitch it's at. So Surfer EQ is a cheat code. On the hi-hat, I added another Slate virtual mix rack. And I added a plugin called Revival. What Revival does is it just adds brightness. It's really good on snares, on hi-hats. and on vocals, it kind of makes that top end really shine through. The kick drum, I got a transient master. This kick is pretty aggressive. I just cut some of the attack, added this free plugin called G-Clip, which is pretty dope. It's hard to get it to work in Catalina, but it's pretty good. It's a clipper plugin, just to add a little bit of soft clipping. And then the channel EQ, the Ableton stock one, just to tame some of that high-end stuff. On the snare, I got a glue compressor, just doing a little bit of soft clipping, turned up the makeup gain. So let's hear it without the glue. And with it. Just makes it punch through more. Cut everything below 150, and then I did some multiband compression. Just kind of tamed some of those high frequencies, compressed some of them, and compressed some of the mid-range stuff. So let's hear it without multiband and with it. Super bright. This just dialed it back, got it in the right pocket. That's just some drum design shaping that I did with that plugin. Vocals. I have a whole bus for the vocals in Ableton. On the bus, I use the plugin Soothe, which I talk about a lot, made by this cool company called Oak Sound. What it does is it just tames a lot of the real bright, intense frequencies.
I'm on my wave. Pull up in that flave.
If you look at it, it's just doing minor cuts on the real harsh stuff. Again, another example of me not using too much of one plugin at one time because all the effects are cumulative when you use them. Let's look at Harry's vocal. What I do in Ableton is I have buses for the vocals. So I have a bus that's called vocals, and then another bus, DECAP, oh gosh, and Harry. On the buses themselves, I don't have any plugins. It's just more organizational. I'm gonna take the plugin off and let's hear what it sounds like.
But really, I'm chillin'. To one of you niggas, just feel like you bad and this shit hit the ceiling.
The plugin chain, it just opened it up, compressed it a bit, just kind of made it fit with the blend of the track. What I did on his vocal, I cut everything below 178, put Soothe on it to cut some of the harsh stuff.
Niggas just feel like you bad and this shit hit the ceiling.
Again, you can see like just little cuts. RVox, a vocal compressor from Waves. Saturator.
Niggas just feel like you bad and this shit hit the ceiling.
Just to give it more warmth. Cut some more frequencies after the saturator because it adds more harmonics. Added some multiband to it.
Niggas just feel like you.
I compressed some of the highs and the mids. OTT. How many of you guys know about OTT? OTT, it's a stock Ableton preset in the multiband compression. If you look at the amount, I added just a little bit of multiband. And it just kind of gives it this brightness. So if I put it on full, watch this.
Niggas just feel like you bad and this shit hit the ceiling. This is not about you little.
It sounds bad when you put it all on a vocal, but just a little bit of it can really, give you some extreme compression. I did similar processing on the other vocals too. Now let's look at the master chain. A lot of times I'll show tracks and I don't have tons of stuff on the master, but this one I have a lot on the master. Again, Soothe. Let's hear it with no master.
I'ma start hollering, take your whole audience. I'm the black man, Batman, moving silent through the city.
And with the master.
I ain't playing games, but I get my brain high like a BBS wet.
So the master's doing a lot on this one, so I'll show you guys what I did. Soothe.
I'ma start hollering, take your whole audience.
Just cutting some of those harsh frequencies. Dangerous Backs EQ, a dope plugin from Plugin Alliance. It's basically just an EQ. Boosting the high frequency by about 1 decibel at 7.1 kilohertz, and that's it with that plugin. Just a little bit of a high boost. I just really like the sound of this plugin. Then I got the Slate Virtual Mix Rack. I have the virtual channel on it with some drive just to give it a little more distortion, I guess, a little bit of saturation. And I'm using the RC Tube board for this. After that is the Revival plugin. I have it on 4 for shimmer. That's the plugin I showed you guys earlier. Really good on snares, really good on hi-hats, also good on the master, good on vocals. It adds just this shimmer to the track. Next plugin, Pro Q3. I have it in linear phase mode. I'm rolling off the lows at 24 hertz, just to cut that real low bass frequency. When you cut the real lows and the real highs, you can push the track harder. Then I got a glue compressor. Let's see how much gain reduction we're doing.
I'ma start hollering, take your whole audience.
We got about 3 decibels of gain reduction and then 5 decibels of makeup. We have the threshold at -14, so the needle's going up to about 3. That's how you know how much gain reduction you have. Then I have the makeup set to 5 decibels. And I have soft clipper on. I have it at a short release time, which means that the gain reduction is hitting 0 faster. So it's compressing faster. Also a pretty short attack, in between attack, just so we're still capturing the quick transients like kicks and snares. After that, I got Gullfoss on it, and I have it set to 16, recover 16 tame. Ozone 9, I got the imager. I brought down the stereo width of the 808 so it keeps it narrow. And I turned up a little bit some of those higher frequency stereo width. So everything over 1K is a little wider with this plugin. The reason why I made the lows narrower and not wider is because low frequencies sound better on a system when the frequencies are narrower. After that, I got a limiter with 6 decibels of gain.
I'ma start hollering, take your whole audience. Yeah, I'm the black man, Batman, moving silent through the city. Yeah.
So if you look at it, it's really just touching the top of the limiter. So it's just getting some of those peaks. After that, I love this plugin. It's Good Hertz Dither. And this is how I get my 32-bit file down to 24-bit. A lot of people will dither here with FabFilter or whatever limiter they use. I use Good Dither because I looked at the statistics. Good Dither has a better dithering algorithm at 24-bit. So I know that's pretty technical, but when you're working in 32-bit and you want to get down to 24-bit for streaming, Good Dither is a good plugin. It's like 12 bucks. So that's it. That's it for On My Wave, y'all.